Good afternoon. My name is Steve Baker. I'm the Vice President of the Great Game of Business. I want to welcome you to our webinar this afternoon on open book management and the idea of creating rapid financial results and lasting cultural change. I'm coming to you live from Springfield, Missouri. We're known for being the birthplace of a lot of famous things like Bass Pro and Brad Pitt and Cashew Chicken, but very few people know us as the birthplace of open book management. And it really started at SRC. It's a company that remanufactures engines. I'll tell you a little bit more about the origins of open book management as we go through. I think I should also clarify that we at the Great Game of Business are the smallest division of SRC. Today we're about 1,500 people, 14 core divisions, most of which are involved in remanufacturing. We also have joint ventures with John Deere, with Case New Holland, and with Navistar, and just started doing new assembly for Harley Davidson, lots of manly engine things. But the issue is that we started very small, about 119 people. The Great Game of Business, being the smallest division of SRC, actually was established to handle a high demand for company tours as people learned about open book, and basically has grown into the largest and best known resource for open book management training and education. This book came out in 1992 and is the story of SRC and open book management. What's amazing is that some very famous people have paid attention to this. Jim Collins, author of Good to Great, says the whole concept of the Great Game of Business is beautiful. Consistency, alignment, and transparency infused with core values and brought to life with powerful mechanisms. And that's really an important thing to think about, because there are so many business operating systems out there. Very few have the mechanisms to bring them to life and to give you both the financial results and the cultural change that you want. In fact, we have seen now through the years that great game companies typically see twice the national average in revenue growth and 6 times in profit growth, and along with that, the cultural change of 3 times the national average in business literacy and employee engagement. And how do we do that? How do we get those things? And what we often do is we start by helping people understand that maybe they need to engage their people on a different level. As an example, when we do large conferences, we often ask this question: how many people work at your company? And someone in the audience will invariably raise their hand and say, half of them. What I'd like you to do is watch this video and see what you get out of it.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Mr. Delaney's office. Oh, hello, Mr. Delaney. You're not feeling well? I'm sorry. Yes, I can have that ready for you, and you'll be stopping in to pick it up? Oh, you'll stop in tomorrow. And what about the big presentation today at 2 o'clock? Absolutely. I'll have him conference you in from home. Okay. Feel better, Mr. Delaney.
FedEx, proudly bringing you the FedEx Cup.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a serious problem with energy in the United States. You could call it an energy crisis. The Gallup folks do an annual survey on employee engagement showing, and really these numbers don't change decade after decade, 70% of our employees, our workforce of the U.S., are not engaged in their work every day. In fact, what I like to do is test people and say, what's the difference between these 2 automobiles? And most often people can't really figure it out until I zoom in a little bit and show them this information. The fact is, when we rent things, we treat them completely different than we do when we own them. And this idea of ownership, this idea of mentally being a part of this thing, separates us from that employee mentality. Employees and owners often will find themselves at odds, probably because we're not aiming at the same goals, and we definitely are not speaking the same language. Employees typically lay awake at night worrying about, will I have a job, will I get a check, and will it cash? And if you think about, I mean, that's just the American way, and I'm the same way. I mean, I worry about those things. I need security. But what we often don't teach our people is, where does that job security come from? And it really comes from a growing and profitable and sustainable business, doesn't it? And if, in fact, we focused a little bit less on the job and the KPIs and a little bit more on building a great company, think about it as the company is the product, the company is the service. it's really a powerful way to think, because now we can start to really focus on those things that create job security and career opportunities and all that, and that's building a growing and sustainable and profitable business. So owners think about these things: cash and competition and material costs, labor. All the things that owners worry about are the things that if we could get our employees to worry about too, we could get all the stuff employees want. In fact, what we say is, if we can get employees to think and act like owners, everybody wins. If we can get our hands around the idea of cash and growth and investment, all of the things that employers and leaders and owners and businesses worry about, by golly, we will get career opportunities and job security and good benefits and all of the things that we want as employees. Now, you may not know who this character is, but I'm going to introduce you now. This is Luca Pacioli, the father of modern accounting. Not exactly the Brad Pitt of the Renaissance. I mean, he was a Venetian monk, so we got to keep that in mind. This guy, Luca Pacioli, introduced the world to the modern accounting system. Why on earth am I teaching you about this guy? Well, those financial statements that he created, if you think about the income statement and the balance sheet, these things did not change in the last 520 years. This painting that you see here was painted in 1494. The financial statements as we know them today have not changed in a half a millennia. So do we think they're going to change in another 20 years or 50 years? They won't. Why don't we teach our people these? These are the universal scorecards of business. It is the secret language of business, and it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter if we make engines, or if we are a great IT company, or if we write software, or if we are a photographer. The financial statements measure everything, and they touch every life on the planet, you guys. We can't drill a well in Africa for fresh drinking water without it showing up on some sort of a financial statement at the World Bank. It touches every life, and yet very, very few people have access to them or could understand them if they did. Now, what's interesting is back in the Renaissance, the books were open, right? These things were used for the merchants of Venice. Heck, they were the center of trade and for the whole universe, you know, think about that. And they needed a way to manage their cash flows and their inventories, and so everything was open. But during the Industrial Revolution, we really closed things down. We said, let's lock these financials away in a safe and put someone in charge of it. We'll call them a controller, right? And instead, when we ask people to come in off the farm and work in our factories, we'll give them a KPI and a quota. And by golly, that'll be great. You know, push the button, pull the lever, get it down the line, do your job, nothing more, nothing less. Unfortunately, that doesn't work very well, and it didn't for us. As the Industrial Revolution wore on, we effectively took the language of business out of business by divorcing people from the daily decisions that they made, divorcing that from the financial results of the business, and many of our big Industrial Revolution giants suffered. If you think about the late 70s and early 80s, very scary times, record high unemployment, record low car sales, interest rates topped out at 22%, and people like International Harvester were dying. Well, in Springfield, Missouri, there was a tiny little division of International called the Springfield Renew Center, SRC. And Jack Stack, 29 years old at the time, and 12 other managers tried to buy the place from International, because International was losing cash at $57,000 an hour and went on a layoff spree of 1,000 people a week for 2 years straight. Can you imagine how that must have felt to work for International and every day wake up wondering, will the gates be locked? Well, Jack Stack and these 12 other managers went on an incredible odyssey to try to save jobs, these 119 jobs in Springfield, Missouri, and along the way what they figured out is while they had the best report cards they could ever have. They had the best quality, the best warranty record, the best safety, the best customer service, and yet International was still failing. How could we create a system where they could do their job so well and the company around them could fail? And so as they went to the different banks, they found that they didn't know anything about running a business. They knew about making engines, and they had to learn that universal language of business, those financial statements. And that's where the open book idea came from. They were turned down 54 times. That's how they figured it out. And Jack knew that if indeed he could get that loan and save those jobs, he was going to teach everybody business. They did, in fact, get the loan. It was $8.9 million against $100,000 down. Very rich story. You should read the book. At a deal rate of 18%. So imagine, if you will, the incredible pressure of having a guy like Jack had a $200 a month mortgage and 3 kids in diapers at the time, and then woke up the next day with a loan for $8.9 million and $130,000 of interest expense due in 28 days. He had to teach his people business, and he used the analogy of a game, and the reason was very simple. When you get people who are really good at their job and everything else is okay, you say, give me the tools and get the heck out of my way. The bottom line is he didn't let people off the hook. They all had to understand business, or the bank could come in and take it all away. And with a loan like this, they were only a few days away from running out of cash and not being able to make the bank loan payment. He used the analogy of a game to engage people around this idea of learning business and not feeling like they had to all become accountants. In case you're wondering why a game, if you recognize this guy, Abraham Maslow, and no, it's not the guy from the Beverly Hillbillies, Abraham Maslow came up with a hierarchy of needs. If you remember, these are universal human needs. And one of the things I want to tell you about Jack Stack's brilliance is that he figured out something. We want people to think like, oh, here's a more basic universal human need, free Wi-Fi. He figured out the basic universal human need to win is way down at the bottom of the pyramid, and we can engage people around that because that's where many of them are living, down in the, I'm scratching it out, trying to figure out how to make the loan payments and this sort of thing. And when we want people to think like owners, they're at the top of the pyramid. So engage them at the bottom and work them up. Business has all the elements of a game. There's a goal, there are rules, the scoreboards are, of course, the financial statements, and there's a reward for winning. Here's an important thing to think about. Nobody will play your silly little game if they don't understand the rules, if they don't know the score and can't change it, and if they can't win. And in the next few webinars, we'll go through each of these elements, know and teach the rules, follow the action and keep score, and provide a stake in the outcome, all encircling this idea of critical number. The idea of critical number is what defines winning? What's our goal for this game of business? In the Great Game of Business, we say that every employee is given the measures of business success and taught to understand them. Every employee is expected and enabled to act on that knowledge to improve performance of the business, and by golly, shouldn't they get a stake in the outcome if, in fact, they can do all of those things? We believe they do, because we think, again, that when employees think and act and feel like owners, everybody wins. So this is how it looks in graphic form. In the other webinars, we'll go through each of these. First of all, we have to open the books. That's financial transparency and education. We just don't want to open the books, though. We've got to educate along with. We get to our critical number by involving a lot of people in a high-involvement planning process. Then we bring it to life and follow the action and keep score. That's where we forecast all of our numbers. We don't live in the past. We run our business in the future. We do that in our huddles, and we huddle around our scoreboards, which, of course, in business are those financial statements. And then if we're reaching our goals, by golly, we're going to drive that performance with bonus plans, recognition. We use a form of execution called mini games, and some companies even involve literal ownership. But you should know a very small percentage of folks do. In essence, for SRC, it's done some great stuff, guys. We've spun off 64 companies since 1983. And our stock is just incredible. If you would have put $1,000 in the S&P 500 in your 401k, today you'd have about 13 grand. If you were smart, though, you would have put it with Warren Buffett, and Berkshire Hathaway would have provided you $113,000. But if you were stupid enough to stay at SRC in 1983 and put your $1,000 into the company, today it's worth $3.9 million. That's the power of people, and that's the power of creating wealth and sharing wealth with those who create it. I would encourage you to learn more about Open Book. Join us for more webinars, and go to the website. Check out greatgame.com/intro7 for free information on Open Book management, its origins, its fundamentals, and it's 100% education, 0% sales. I hope you'll join us. Thanks so much. This is Steve Baker.